Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District Candidates Forum. I'm Gina Chanel Wilcox. I'm the president and publisher of Embarcadero Media's East Bay Division, which includes the Pleasanton Weekly, DanvilleSanRamon.com, and our newest edition, LivermoreVine.com. My co-moderator is Sierra Bailey. She is the editor of Livermore Vine. There are 9 candidates competing for 3 at-large seats in this election. 7 of the candidates are here tonight, incumbents Craig Bueno, Emily Prusso, and Ann White, and challengers Steve Druin, Deanna Kaplanis, Christina Mazaika, and Hayden Sidden. All 9 candidates were invited to participate in tonight's forum, but unfortunately John Kupski is out of town and Alex Azara chose not to participate. Thank you very much to Livermore Indivisible, our co-sponsor, for helping with the logistics and the promotion of this event. Also, thank you to the school district for allowing us to use the boardroom for the forum and for the ability to live stream and record it. We appreciate the many community members who submitted questions prior to the event. We will also be collecting additional questions from the audience here tonight. So audience members, if you have a question, please write it on an index card and wave to Helen, and she will come and collect it and bring it up to us. We will consolidate questions on the same subjects and ask as many questions as time allows, but please understand that we will not be able to ask every question. The candidates were not given the questions prior to this event. That's an important thing. While we normally ask the same question of all candidates, with so many in this race, that would become tiresome for the audience and probably not produce thoughtful answers for the last few candidates who would likely struggle to say anything different from the previous answers. So we're going to ask questions of different groups of candidates, like 1 through 4 and 5 through 7, odd numbers and even numbers and the like. To make it fair, when they arrived, we asked the candidates to draw numbers and sit in the corresponding chairs. That's why they are not in alphabetical order. And thank you to the candidates, most of all, for being here tonight, because this is very important. And we really appreciate your time. We will start with 2-minute opening statements for each candidate. We're going to go in numerical order from 1 to 7. Then each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to our questions. Our timekeeper, Karen, will signal when you have 30 seconds and when you are to stop, and she will ding you if you go too much further. So we'll ask as many questions as possible, and then at the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. And because of the limited time and the number of candidates, we've asked them to save any rebuttals for their closing remarks. And we are going to start with candidate Sidon to give his opening statement first.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here. And thank you to the Livermore Vine for putting on this forum. My name is Hayden Sidden. I'm 18 years old, an 11-year resident of Livermore, and a proud product of LVJ USD. After 10 years in Livermore's public schools, I graduated from Granada earlier this year, and I'm currently studying political science at Las Positas with plans to remain in the Bay Area. I've been very active in the community over the past few years, having worked on local political campaigns, served on Livermore's Equity and Inclusion Working Group, interned in Rebecca Bauer-Cahan's office, and collaborated with a number of local organizations. I'm running for a few reasons. 1, because we need more young voices in positions of leadership, and your children deserve a school board trustee who has shared experiences in our schools. 2, because as a 10-year student and recent graduate of LVJ USD, I have more recent direct experience in our classrooms than any of my opponents combined. 3, because the things that some of my opponents are saying with regards to masks, vaccines, and critical race theory, among others, are blatantly false, and most of them do not bring specific solutions to the issues they are addressing. And 4, because little has changed in the past few years with the same leadership, which points to a need for new leadership. With my first-hand knowledge of what goes on in our classrooms, the simple truth is that I know what works in our schools and what doesn't. That's why I'm running on a platform of change and progress that includes expanding access to mental health services, revamping and modernizing our curriculum and educational resources, and working with local entities to civically engage families, keep our students safe, and create pathways to success for our students. I've been endorsed by a number of local and state elected officials, community activists, labor unions, and political organizations because I am trusted to deliver results for Livermore schools. I would be honored to serve my schools, my teachers, my former classmates, my neighbors, and my community on the school board, and I can't wait to share my ideas with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Druin.
Thank you, Livermore Vine, Livermore Indivisible, and everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Dr. Stephen Druin, and I'm running for school board because I think democracy is a team sport, and I want to serve the students in our community. I'm a father of 2 students that go to public school here in Livermore. I've been in Livermore since 2009. I'm a husband of a special education teacher here in town, and I come from a family of educators. My dad was an auto shop teacher, and my mom was my high school counselor. I went to San Francisco State where I got my Bachelor's of Arts in History, single subject credential in Social Studies, and my Master's in Education. I taught at Tracy High School for 9 years, teaching Social Studies, and while I was there, I earned my doctorate in Education at Mills College. Last 7 years, I've been working in higher education with teachers and principals and counselors to understand education problems and how to use research to understand those and address them. So I think there's 3 things that I would love to see Livermore get to. First is supporting students. Second is supporting teachers, staff, and administration. And last is using research as part of the conversation. So regarding students, I think that every student in Livermore Unified School District needs to feel like they belong, to feel like they're supported and they have a purpose in school. I think that whether they're in GSA club, if they have dyslexia, if they're on track team, if they want to go to UC Berkeley, or if they want to work in a local auto body shop, they need to have access to opportunity and to find purpose in school. Regarding supporting teachers, staff, and administration, I think that's, oh my goodness, I think that the last year has been the hardest year ever for teachers. And I think we as a school district need to figure out ways to lift the burdens that teachers have been facing, as well as staff and administration. And lastly, our students win when our beliefs and values are supported by research and scholarship. I want to be a bridge between the school district and educational scholarship that exists around the country. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And candidate Mazaika.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out and taking time today. I'm relatively new to the area. I'm a native Southern California girl, and my family moved up here in 2017. I went to Cornell University where I received a Bachelor of English. I have a master's degree in curriculum development. I was a public school teacher in San Diego for 15 years. When I left San Diego, my beloved home, I then went into other areas of education. I've been an elementary school principal. I've been an educational, a reading interventionist. I've been an instructional coach, and now I serve at a local private school here, and I am their director of growth and development. I take care of all the teachers, do the instructional coaching, parent education, and the like. I have a passion for children and teachers, and so this was a time in my life, my children are grown, that I felt it was a good time to serve in this capacity. I believe that it begins with social and emotional learning. When we believe that we have a sense of community, it starts with the district office. It trickles down to the principals, to then the teachers, and then the students feel it. I've seen it firsthand when I taught, that when I made relationships and community building in my classroom a priority, everything then trickled. So that's my number one goal to kind of talk about here. My second is academic rigor. We need to be able to have students at grade level standard and above. And we do that by starting with that social and emotional learning component. And then the third is equal access to the curriculum. And that comes in a variety of capacities, from our children coming to school fed, clothed properly, having their basic needs met. So Abraham Maslow before Benjamin Bloom is what I'm all about. Thank you so much, and I look forward to sharing more of my ideas with you.
Thank you. Candidate Kaplanis.
Good evening, Livermore community members. I wanted to thank Livermore Indivisible and Livermore Vine for hosting this event. My name is Dr. Dina Kaplanis. I'm a proud wife and mother to 2 small-age children in our district. I have been serving our community for over 20 years in the sports medicine and chiropractic field. I am a former 2-sport scholar athlete from Whittier College. I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology and leisure science with an emphasis in pre-med. I also have a minor in psychology. While at Whittier College, I got hired to work in the athletic department directly under the athletic director, handling his master schedule. I also worked with all the collegiate coaches in the recruiting committee. Upon graduation, I got hired to work by my alma mater as an assistant volleyball coach, designing the strength and conditioning program for the women's college volleyball team. I continued my education at Southern California University of Health Sciences, earning a cum laude doctorate degree in chiropractic. I am the first in my family to achieve the highest level of education. Both my mother and sister are special education teachers, while I educate patients daily about pathology, health, and wellness. My husband and I are also local small business owners. We are actively involved in a local nonprofit program that helps with sheltering and employing homeless people in our community. I also volunteer as a team parent on my children's sports teams and in our church children's ministry. I am running for school board because I want to continue serving the children and families in our community. As an involved parent, I truly care about what's taking place in our educational institutions. As a businesswoman, I have experience in budgeting and maximizing the effectiveness of every dollar spent. As a private practicing doctor of chiropractic, I naturally have a heart to help children be at their best mentally, physically, academically, emotionally, and socially. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bueno.
Thank you very much. And again, to echo the thanks to our partners, Livermore Vine and Livermore Indivisible for putting this on. My name is Craig Bueno, and I'm running to be reelected to the Board of Trustees. My motivation, we have 3 adult sons now. They all attended our schools, our great schools, K through 12. Each of them was accepted directly into UC Davis or UC Berkeley. They got out in 4 years, and they have really good professions right now. So following my 28-year career as a professional firefighter, I found my way back to serving the community and kind of pursuing my lifelong pursuit of public service by helping out on the school board. So I've been involved in school site council, our GATE programs, youth sports. So I have a really good understanding of what the kids need and what they can benefit from. I've also been a coach here in the community for about almost 30 years now, and I've been coaching at a local high school here, volunteering for 19. I pledged in 2014 when I ran that I would help improve facilities, that I would seek partnerships, and I would maintain and support our STEM and the small class sizes. And I've kept my word on every single one of those things. We entered into a solar program that I helped spearhead. It now nets the district about $800,000 a year in savings. We had no footprint. Now almost every one of our campuses is complete. We needed, if there was a way to link our campuses together, I reached out to some partners at Cisco. We implemented a telepresence system, and that really helped us out during the dark days of the pandemic by connecting this district office with all of our sites. We had no federal footprint. I worked with one of my lobbyists to get some federal money. We've connected all of our 700 classrooms with bond money to audio-visual stuff, and we've got some really marquee projects going at Livermore, Granada, East Avenue, and Joe Mitchell. We're not done. This November we have a bond coming out, and it's going to be, that facilities bond is going to be of real importance to the community, and I want to be here to support that and to help these kids on some of the effects, the negative effects of the COVID.
Thank you. And Candidate White.
I'm Ann White, a candidate for election to the Livermore School Board. The board is chosen by you, the voters, to be responsible for the education of the children of Livermore. The board then hires an education professional, our superintendent, who follows the board's direction in managing the district. If we've learned nothing else in the past 2 years, we've learned that parents must know that their children will be safe at school. Otherwise, everything falls apart. After safety, our primary goal is to raise student achievement for all students, eventually closing the achievement gap. What we're doing now is not producing much improvement in student achievement. We must do something different. If we continue to roll over the program, we will get what we've always gotten, barely adequate achievement. We need to be innovative to help all students achieve more. That is, all students, narrowing the achievement gap. Still, as we prepare students for college and careers, we must not forget that our schools also prepare our young people for their responsibilities as citizens. A knowledgeable, participating citizenry is critical to preserving our democracy, particularly in these troubled times. I've been active in the California School Boards Association, a member of the Charter School Task Force and the Adequacy Committee. I was regional director for CSBA for 4 years. I was a member of the Department of Education textbook review panels for 4 core subjects and German. I'm no longer a soccer mom, but I continue my community activities in the Student Education Loan Fund, Chamber of Commerce, and the Livermore Amador Symphony Guild. I look forward to working with our new superintendent to improve student performance. My experience and wisdom will be important as Livermore becomes innovative in addressing student needs on the road to improved achievement for all. Vote for me, re-elect Ann White. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Prusso.
Hi, thank you for having me. I wanted to echo thank you to Livermore Vine and Livermore Indivisible for putting this on for us tonight. My name is Emily Prusso, and I'm a parent in Livermore. I have 4 kids, 2 who have graduated and 2 who are still in school. My husband and I are small business owners and own a construction company here in Livermore. I have a master's degree in literature, which basically means that I like to read books. And I have been on the school board for 4 years and am seeking a second term. I am running to continue to work towards closing achievement gaps in math and language arts. I would like to focus on the following things: to help students have strong fundamental skills in reading, math, and science, to support the learning of practical life skills, including financial literacy, and to help develop students' critical thinking skills. In addition to these 3 things, I've served on the Health and Wellness Committee for the past 4 years, I have seen that having supports in place for mental, social, and emotional health is necessary, and will continue to support our district's efforts towards mental health for all of our students and also our staff. I'm a proponent of our career technical education and have been serving for the past 2 years as chairperson of the ROP board, which is the Tri-Valley program that champions technical careers. I love the ROP motto, which is careers by choice, not by chance. I have learned a lot in the past 4 years and would like to have a chance to continue to take what I've learned and support our learning community in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to my co-moderator.
All right, we are going to get into the first question. It is a 2-part question. The first part will go to candidates 1 through 4, and the second part will be answered by candidates 5 through 7. So starting with part A, it will go to candidate sit-in first. The Livermore School District trustees have placed a $450 million general obligation bond on the November ballot. Do you support the bond or not, and why? And specifically address the proposed list of projects and financial oversight.
I do support Measure G. I've publicly stated my support for Measure G multiple times, and I've stated that I plan to vote for Measure G in November because, this is about modernizing our schools, and this is about giving our students the best possible campuses that we can give them. I live right behind Joe Mitchell. A chain link fence separates my backyard from Joe Mitchell, and for the past couple of years, I've seen how Joe Mitchell has been repainted, rebuilt, revamped, and it looks a lot better than when I went there. That's going to happen for all of our schools, and I absolutely support any measure that will replace old infrastructures, give our students a good, modern, state-of-the-art place to learn, and keep it that way for many years to come. I think, first and foremost, I support the rebuilding of our schools, the replacement of the front of Granada, I'm blanking, I'm sorry, but I do support Measure G, and I will be proud to vote for it in November.
Thank you. Candidate Druin.
Sure. So I support it as well. I think that looking at I served on the Oversight Committee previously and was pleased with how the district was spending its money. And I think that one of the aspects of this bond that I like is that it also has a Oversight Committee so that members of the community can make sure that dollars that are supposed to be spent on this bond go to what it's supposed to be on. I think that having taught in portables and have been at schools that have portables send the wrong message to students. They tell them that, you know, we're here for you possibly, but what sends the right message is having, I mean, the new building at East Avenue, Joe Mitchell looks phenomenal. And it's not just paint. We're talking about sewage. We're talking about problems that need to be addressed, and we're going to pay for it one way or another. But passing this is going to help us tap into state dollars to feed multiple birds with one hand. So I think it's a win-win, and I think money going towards making the schools safer is absolutely essential. I think the turnaround at Joe Mitchell is phenomenal, a game changer to try and make it better and safer for schools. So I'm looking forward to other aspects of this that can make our schools safer as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Mazeka.
Wow, well, those are kind of sum it all up. I have lived through a modernization as a teacher, and I can tell you, you know, as an inside scoop, it boosts morale. So in addition to the wonderful points that my co-candidates have made, is that it's a game changer. You know, teacher retention is a huge issue. And it comes to many factors, but that's one of them. If that helps them to feel well taken care of, that it matters, that the community cares. And I agree that if we don't, we pay for it one way or the other. So why not get out ahead of it? It's a lot cheaper, and it just builds that morale. And when teachers feel well cared for and supported, that trickles down to students, to families. That confidence is conveyed, which is quite important. So I too support Prop G.
Candidate Kaplanis.
I am in support of anything that has a good return on the investment. I agree the facilities need to be updated. If it passes, that's our solution. As a board member, I'd like to maximize the effectiveness of every dollar spent. If the bond does not pass, there should be a contingency plan as to what next and how do we go about getting the funding that we need. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was a pretty good segue, even though you didn't know it, because moving on to candidate Bueno. The school district has been successful with bond measures in the recent past, but there is always a possibility Measure G will not pass. If that is the case, how would you suggest the district fund necessary projects?
Okay. Unfortunately, there is no contingency. The way that the state funding works, I've said in these meetings for years now, it's convoluted at best. Several years ago, they removed the funding from what we get as average daily attendance that pays for these school improvements. So it's relying upon a community to support their facilities through bond measures. The normal cycle is about every 10 years. We had the foresight here in Livermore to run our projects concurrent, not end to end. And it happened to be during COVID, a small silver lining in that is that a lot of the safety precautions when you have kids on campus didn't have to be put in place. And we were able to increase our timelines. So our projects came in ahead of schedule and under budget largely with very, very good oversight from the community. So what's essential is that you have the trust of the community has the understanding of the importance, and that you subsequently get the support of the community. And we're extremely fortunate in this community. We have two prominent national laboratories, Quest Science Center, a lot of partnerships here. And those things help support it. And it's just a statement of today that without the bond, your schools kind of remain and you put Band-Aids on them and you try to do the best you can. But in that, you're taking from one to give to the other. It comes out of your general fund. And so the object here is to fix the facilities while keeping your program and increasing your program.
Thank you. Candidate White?
If the bond doesn't pass, we will figure out why it didn't pass, fix it, and put it out again. I mean, there is just really no option. We don't get, the money we get from the state is primarily for program, not for facilities. The bond is for facilities. Our parcel taxes are for program, not for facilities. This is the choice. And this allows us to have matching funds for any state money that's still available. What else is there to say? We want our students and our teachers to work in up-to-date, modern, safe facilities. This is the answer. I've already voted for Major G.
Thank you. And candidate Prusso?
I feel like there's not a whole lot more that I can say.
No, there isn't.
But I will say, as maybe a little bit differently, but as people have been saying, is that we are a people business, and close to 85% of our budget goes to salaries for our staff members, which leaves us only 15% to manage things like facilities, curriculum, all the other things. And so because of the way the funding is, as President Bueno already said, this is our only way to do the facilities. And I agree with Ann. I think if it fails, we need to figure out why it failed, and maybe we need to try a different tactic, different terms. However we do it, this is the only way that we can get it done. Unfortunately, that's how it works. I wish that it were different. So that's all I got.
Yeah, there's a, no.
I'm asking the next question. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so going into the next question, we are going to start with candidate Prusso first. Again, another two-parter. So the first part will go to candidates 7 through 4, and second part will go to candidates 3 through 1. So starting with candidate Prusso, how would you work to improve or foster a more open flow of communication between the district and the public?
That's a really good question. That's one of the things that I think is really important, and it's part of our LCAP, is our community engagement, one of the 3 components of our LCAP. That's how important we feel that it is. We realized how important this was over COVID as well, when everyone needed information as soon as possible. I think that our community engagement team has done a fantastic job of getting information out there as best they can in many different formats, via text, website, whatever else that they can. One thing that I have been advocating for, and I know that the community engagement is working on, is a parent-student handbook that will be available to parents with different ideas in there, but also information about things that they may need for their students, whether it's an IEP or whether it's to get a different math class, whatever it is, so that there is one place where parents can go and find the information they need. And I'd like to continue to work on that parent-student handbook and have that available, as well as continue with the community engagement that we're already in process of.
Thank you. Candidate White.
I hope community engagement includes those sessions that they have with parents. Our health and wellness people put those together, because sometimes our parents really need to understand how our schools work. They don't know perhaps that they are welcome to be at school, to come to school. And it wasn't until recently that they were welcome because of the pandemic. The times are changing. We're working on a volunteer policy right now. I'm on the policy committee, so I just happen to know that. But I don't think there's a staff member who wouldn't visit a school and talk to parents if they want to, if they invite themselves.
Candidate Bueno.
Thank you. This is something that's dynamic, and I don't think it's a single answer.
No.
When I was a kid, they pinned a piece of paper on your chest and made you walk home and said, give this to your parents. No, and it's changed, and it's always changing. If the pandemic has taught us anything, is that you can't communicate in one way. One thing that we established here, because we could see it coming, and it's good that we did, is that we put in a community engagement team. Philomena Rambo used to head that, and it was a new position. We put it in place, and it's multifaceted. It's from web to social media, and a lot of the little internal programs like the Grapevine and things like that. The people that are in the media know that. It's changing the way we communicate. People have gotten away from cable TV. They pulled the plug. They're streaming. So the effort is ever changing. And so Michelle Dawson does a great job. She runs that for us right now. There's a constant stream of information that comes from the district through her division and out to the public. And it's also a portal for the public for us to receive information. There's 1,500, 1,600 employees here that serve 13,000 kids and their families in a community of nearly 100,000 people. It's not static. It's a very dynamic situation. We try to be nimble, not create something that's so big that we can't change it, because information and technology is always changing. So it's important that we stick with our partners that are good in that, establish those relationships, and just continue to get feedback and change as we need to.
Thank you. And lastly, for this part, candidate Kaplanis.
For community engagement, as a board member, I'd like to represent the community well by being a bridge builder and closing any divisive gaps between parents, teachers, staff, and the school board itself, while having laser focus on student achievement. From the parental side, I believe that we can enhance our community engagement by having more prompt communication with the community. I think we could make sure everyone in our community, the families, have access to services more promptly. And I also think that that there's a need to be more present and available to the community as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And part B, we'll start with candidate Mozaika. A new law allows for the removal of a person deemed disruptive at a public meeting, like a school board meeting, but disruptive behaviors are not defined. Outside of physical violence or threats of physical violence, what behaviors would you consider disruptive enough to remove a person from a meeting?
It's a great question. I think whenever respect is lost, that's the time. If emotions are running really high, we're not being thoughtful and engaged and treating others the way we want to be treated, we can't hear any answers anyway. It's just an opportunity to vent, and that doesn't really move us forward. So I think in a situation that way, it would be time to say, let's set that aside, let's come back. Because usually that's coming from a real raw place, and there needs to be an opportunity to let that out, but probably not in this setting.
Thank you. Candidate Druin?
Sure. So I'm the chair of UIRB at Stan State University, which is in charge of human subjects research. We follow the Brown rules for engagement. And I think that the broader public doesn't understand that. And so when we have situations where they're angry and frustrated and they have to follow this system of talking, that it can be very frustrating. And I'm assuming that, if something happened and they needed to be removed, I would venture that came from a place of anger and frustration. And I think one of the things that I would want to do is try to help people understand the system and how to participate. That we have a one-page template to give people to understand what happens in the meeting, what you can expect, and how you can engage. But I also think that there's other opportunities for engagement. That I, as a parent, in the last 2 years, there's been times where I've been flooded with communication and instances where I had no clue what was going on. And I think the district has to find the balance between not too much information and too much. Thanks.
Thank you. And candidate Sidon.
Right. So community engagement has been the main focus of the time that I've been involved politically in the community. And I think it's important, that members of the community are allowed to go to public meetings, to go to the school board meetings, city council meetings, so on and so forth, and voice their opinion to their elected officials. But, there must be decorum as well. There must be a sense of respect, from among those in the audience and also for the people sitting on the dais. I'd say, any form of heckling, any threats, any form of cursing, and really just a general, as candidate Mozaika said, just a general loss of respect would probably warrant removal and be defined as disruptive behavior. But, I agree with what candidate Druin said. We should inform the community on how to be respectful during a meeting, how to participate during a meeting, and that, if they're not, and that probably comes from a place of anger or, feelings of discontent. And I think we should work hard to address that. All community members should be welcome to attend and participate in public meetings, but that must be done so respectfully, and I believe that once respect is lost, then that warrants removal from the meeting.
Thank you. And moving into our next question, we are going to start with candidate Sidon first. So we're going to throw it back to you again. In your opinion, what are the most pressing campus safety issues, and how would you address them?
So in the United States, we have a lot of mass shootings, right? And we have just a lot of general public safety threats in our communities, in our schools, churches, grocery stores, wherever you go, there's that threat. I would work hard. I would work to build and maintain a relationship with our police and fire departments to ensure that our student resource officers are properly trained to respond to any situation that might arise in our schools, to ensure that our student safety plans are up to date, that we have a plan to evacuate schools should something happen. You know, I want to work hard to maintain public safety. I mean, the primary responsibility of the school board is to ensure the safety of our students and staff, and that starts with working with other entities to ensure that safety. Tonight I was endorsed by Moms Demand Action. I was labeled a gun sense safety because I believe that we need to keep guns out of our schools and we need to keep our students safe in our schools. And I will work hard to address that and to keep our students and staff safe in our schools.
Thank you. Candidate Druin?
Sure. I think that we can think about campus safety as both physical violence and emotional violence. And I think that when we're talking about physical violence, something terrible happening at schools, I think that for me, we're talking about infrastructure, fences, you know, the physical things that happen on schools to keep people safe. But there's also a culture of training people, training parents on that, you know, this is the way that we come into school and this is the way you behave. And when it's time to leave, it's time to leave. And this is all part of safety, that, you know, staying on campus and being on your phone is probably not the thing that needs to happen, that schools are spaces for learning. And so it's creating a culture of this is what we're here for. We're here to help students learn and we're here to help them keep them safe. And I think as far as emotional violence, I think that when we approach safety, we need to think about every single student and think about what we're asking them to do, whether we're doing drills. My wife teaches special education, and when you do fire alarms, that destroys some kids' days because it's too much and they don't understand. So if we're talking about gun safety or fire drills, we need to pay attention to every student on campus and what impact is this going to have and what benefit is going to come from this. Thanks.
Candidate Mozaika?
So hard to come after other people. But I agree, it's really a culture. When students feel secure where they are, it goes back to my what I believe is the foundation of education. When they feel safe, and part of that comes in understanding who they trust on campus, what those protocols are. That's why we have drills, that's why we practice. So that when there is an emergency, when I first moved up here, we had a fire across the street from my school on the first day of school. There were little junior kindergartners, 4 years old, and it was like, oh, but they trusted that teacher even on day one. Crazy, right? But that kind of starts that sense of security. God forbid we ever have a mass shooting. God forbid that something like that happens. But we do these things, we talk about these things in child-safe ways, of course, to not freak them out, but to say, if, again, God forbid something were to happen, here's what we do. And because we've talked about it, because we've regularly practiced, we can be calm, or as calm as possible, in the face of some horrific event.
Thank you. And part B of this question to candidate Kaplanis. The social justice movement of 2020 led to debates on the effects of law enforcement officers on school campuses. A series of school shootings this year brought the debate back about the role of police officers on school campuses. How do you feel about having resource officers in district schools?
There is much debate about this situation. I'm a big advocate for school safety, being that my children are in the district. I think there's many ways to look at this. I do know the value and the importance of having law enforcement either around campus or on campus, however that may be. I am working on a plan of prevention and action for school safety as far as the capacity of that goes and how we can allocate funds for that. It's in the works. But my feelings about that is, you know, from a young age, children are taught to respect their elders, respect people. And I think that, you know, children grow up and they want to play dress up and be a firefighter or be a police officer. And so on campus, if there is a crisis and a student, whether it's bullying or, an issue, I think it's important to have someone around that the student knows who to go to feel safe, whether it be someone in uniform or, a therapist or something, but that needs to be known to the child where to go for safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bueno.
Excuse me. The short answer is I support our police officers in our school to the extent that we work to increase it by 50% with oversight. We worked with the feds. We got grant money. We worked in a partnership with our local police department, Livermore Police Department, so that they have a sergeant on duty, and so there's a supervisory capacity. It's inherently important. I spent my entire life in public safety as a firefighter. I mean, you're sworn to protect since I was, I think, 21 years old or something. So I understand the importance of it. We spent a lot of time in our schools and the community that I served, building that trust with the community, and to me, that is the difference. It's not a unilateral statement in terms of does it work. It depends on the community. It's a big issue, and it's a very multifaceted thing that the community has to trust in it, and that takes a community-based policing ideal. And so keeping those channels open. I've served on intergovernmental since I've been on this board, and so we work with the city and the Parks District. We meet regularly, and we discuss those issues. When DACA was a big issue, we met with our kids in the school. We brought in our congressman. We brought in our police chief. I sat in the room. We heard their issues. Kids that weren't even documented came out and said, I'm not afraid. And so it's really important that you have that community connection. I know we have it here, and I know that we cherish that, and we work very hard to preserve it.
Thank you. Candidate White.
Yes, we do have the spirit of collaboration, and the SROs on campus are positive. I was in a meeting with other elected ladies at one point, and a council member from another district says, we're cutting out our SROs because, it's a police function. And I said, why would you do that? Just every time an SRO got involved, there was an arrest followed. Now, if your approach is to solve your problems that way, maybe you don't need an SRO. Our SROs are counselors. I would suggest counselor in uniform with a different level of heft, as it were. And we're grateful that they are. I mean, that was just the way our SROs were established years ago with John Fox. I mean, you didn't mess with John Fox, but he was a counselor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I support our SROs on campus, and I agree with what Ann said. I think the main thing that I've noticed with our SROs, and maybe this is different in other communities, is the relationships that the SROs on our campuses have with the students. And it is positive relationship. And if you are unsure about that, go ahead and walk onto campus anytime or go to a football game. They come to the football games also. They know who the students are, they know them by name, and they are developing relationships with these students. At our SRO at Livermore High football game, just last Friday night, was handing out junior badges to all the young kids who were there, starting with the younger kids to develop these relationships. So I think that that's really important. And as Craig mentioned, while other districts are releasing their SROs, we actually hired an additional SRO at the request of the students. We worked with the city, and we got a grant to hire an additional SRO, so now we have 3 in our community, and I think it's something to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to start with candidate Prusso on the next question, part A. Studies have shown the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown of schools and move to online teaching has led to learning loss and has created achievement gaps, particularly among younger students. What interventions and strategies would you suggest to mitigate the learning declines during these last 2 years?
Well, I am not an expert on, even though I'm on the school board, I'm not an expert on closing these achievement gaps. But I know some people who are experts, and those are our teachers and our administrators sitting at the back of the room. I have been able to, I am also on the Algebra Task Force, which is a math initiative that began in our district in 2018. And it's great to be on that task force to see our teachers working together across the district, middle school teachers, high school teachers, working together on curriculum, on strategies for helping these students. We, as you may or may not know, you have to pass algebra to pass high school. So this is really important. And I know that we have similar committees for our younger students as well, but I happen to be on the Algebra Task Force. But watching these teachers work together, I think a lot of the answers for these questions we already have in our district. We have very talented people, and it's utilizing those people, seeing what's work, and spreading around to the whole district, I think could be really helpful.
Thank you. And we're mixing it up in this question. So the next candidate is actually going to be candidate Bueno.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, I think there will be some portions of achievement gap, it's broad, that may never catch up because the kids keep moving. And I coached right through it. I'm on our campuses almost every day. And it was very interesting experience when you have a kid who you've been with for a couple of years and you bring them into the facility, and we brought them into the locker room when we were able to bring them indoors, and they're looking around, we're like, come on, let's go. And the kid said, well, I've never seen inside here. And it kind of slips your mind that this was an 8th grader and now he's a sophomore in high school and he's never been inside the facility. And so some of those natural things that you mature, that maturation process didn't occur. And so there's going to be gaps. What we can do, and we have done with program, is to put extra attention on some of the academic stuff. We've supported the social emotional issues that some of these kids were exposed to. And surprisingly, some kids actually excelled during COVID and the separation. They did really, really well with online learning. And that's not really to offset the other. One of the things we talk about with equity here is that to get to the same place, everyone needs different things. So the kids that need that social emotional support, we've tried to provide that. The kids that need program support, we've tried to provide that. And so the solution is going to be different for everyone, and I know definitively that we have the experts here. We've even split our curriculum by having an upper and a lower tier curriculum director. So,
Thank you. Candidate Mazaika.
Woo, I was hoping for this question. I love this question. We do. I totally agree with candidate Prusso. We have the experts. We have the data. John Hattie's work out of Australia shows us the roadmap. And I bet you there are teachers already doing it in the district, and we just need to leverage that. We don't have to do any more research. We don't have to go find it. It's there. We just need to do it. And I agree with candidate Bueno. One size does not fit all, and that's how we meet the gaps. We figure out where kids are right now, socially and emotionally. We know across the board they're about 2 years behind. So teachers are shocked. You know, they were shocked last year when they came in as 3rd graders and they're acting like the 1st graders I used to teach. Yeah, because they've been online. They haven't had those social interactions. So once we got over that kind of culture shock and said, okay, we were able to get them moving fairly quickly, but I think it's really determining where they are, and that kind of formative assessment is crucial in identifying where, and that we adjust our teaching. Doesn't mean we adjust the standards, we adjust the how to get to the what.
Thank you. Candidate Sidden.
So I was at Granada during COVID, and perhaps some students excelled during COVID, but distance learning. But distance learning was also hard on a lot of students, and it brought out this achievement gap that might be very difficult to overcome. We have to address student needs. We had to address student needs during COVID, and we have to continue addressing them, supporting students, supporting teachers, ensuring that their curriculum is meeting the needs of our students and that students are holding on to the curriculum. That means using testing data to influence curriculum. Maybe we need to go back to a certain subject. Maybe we need to move forward a little bit. Maybe some students need a little bit more coaching. Maybe some don't. That means working with teachers to help them, prepare to offer office hours, offer some more resources to help them prepare for tests and homework and whatnot. That means maybe discouraging leniency on due dates. That means, helping, going through every possible avenue that we can to help our students. This is a big hurdle, and we need someone who has been in the schools, who has maybe suffered from that achievement gap, to know what works and what doesn't. And so I'm excited to work with my former teachers, student leadership bodies, to help address this issue and come to solutions to it.
Thank you.
And if you haven't figured out the pattern yet, it's odds, and now we're going to go to evens. Starting with candidate Druin, we're going to drill down a little bit more into that achievement gap and go beyond the learning loss with COVID and pandemic. Describe the achievement gap in this district. What causes it? What can be done? And what do you know about the current plans to provide an equitable education for students in the district? What has been tried in the past? Was it successful? Why or why not?
Sure. So, good question. I think that historically speaking, one of the, how do I say it? Something that caused the achievement gap the most was tracking, was hardcore, you're smart, you're not smart tracking. And I think that one of the things that we need to be careful of is we have students with achievement gaps. We need to make sure that we're not separating and segregating them and treating them that this is their fault, or that, we need to meet them where they are. We need to provide differentiated instruction. We need to, some of my students and administrators in the Central Valley, they're hiring district teachers on assignment to help students, pull them out and work with them in class so that they get to stay with their peers and they get to pull out to get targeted support. So I think that there's a lot of awesome things that Livermore is doing to try to close achievement gaps. I think the variety of programming is absolutely essential. Thinking about the different schools, when we had our children were thinking about what school to go through, that we had a local school, we had a dual immersion school, we had an IB school, and it was like the world was their oyster. But what we need to do is make sure that every single parent in the city knows about that, knows how to apply to the schools that they want to, and try to help them get to the school that they want. Because when their student has programming that speaks to them, they're going to be motivated and wanted to succeed. So there's new things and there's things that we're doing right now that can help close that achievement gap. Thanks.
Thank you. And candidate Kaplanis.
Okay. Some things that I believe that causes the achievement gap. It could be related to social economics. Some children are at a disadvantage, but I think we work with the federal funding that we get and any government programs to allocate access to any resources that the children and their families might need, and make sure that they are aware that they have those services. Like Ann said, whatever we've been doing in the past isn't working. So I do believe we need to change it and assess and evaluate closely, what does work and maximize on that, and what hasn't, and change it. I believe we need to have laser focus on student achievement. When we do that, I think all students can meet some type of milestone, whether it is, moving past things in their, as far as their academics or whatever their challenges are, whether it's mental health, behavioral health, any of the challenges that the students are facing, making sure that we have resources and services available for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate White.
Yes. I think this is not a new problem to have students of different levels in the same classroom. I think our general principle all round is we teach a student where he is, and we bring him from where he is to better over the course of the year. So this is really no different. My reading suggests that high-dose tutoring is what they call it. High-dose tutoring is the most successful. You don't need to redo all of third grade, just the bits and pieces that help you do fourth grade. And I think something that we haven't really talked about is now that you have a 12-year-old and he doesn't know what he should have learned when he was 10, you don't have to teach it to a 10-year-old. Teach it to a 12-year-old. it would be a different way to teach. Maybe, I'm not sure about the sequence here, but it's long division. Maybe a 12-year-old would learn it in 2 days where it took a 10-year-old a week and a half. You just don't know. So I think we need to reaffirm our notion that we take a child where he is and move him forward over the course of the year. And that's where our education professionals take it apart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for the next question, we will start with candidate Mazeka. How would you characterize the district's current relationship with the teachers union, the Livermore Education Association? What can be done to improve and/or strengthen that relationship?
I do not have firsthand knowledge of that. The little that I do know, it seems that it's a good partnership. My experience personally is a very strong partnership between the union and the school district down south. I saw great things happen as a result of that partnership. When we work together, that's when we're able to, that's the secret sauce, is when you get all the pieces kind of on the same page and moving in the same direction and saying, gosh, well, what's good about what you bring? What's good about what I bring? And coming together for that. So the sense that I got, and this is just a feeling, it's not firsthand experience at all, was that that is there. And so that's really special that maybe a lot of people that aren't in the education system can't appreciate, that helps you to really make meaningful, lasting changes, is that when you're both, big constituents within the community are working together toward those end goals. And so I would really continue to build that and to continue to foster that relationship, because great things happen when it's strong.
And we're going 3 through 5. So candidate Kaplanis, you're next.
Can you repeat the question again? I just want to make sure I get all of it.
Sure. How would you characterize the district's current relationship with the teachers union, the Livermore Education Association? What can be done to improve and/or strengthen that relationship?
I believe that the district has a really strong relationship with the Teachers Association. From what I've evaluated and experienced, things that we can do to improve is, I guess, continue to get input and, for the district to continue to do research on their own, to make sure that they're in agreement, that they align. And then whatever is best for the students to have student achievement across the board. To strengthen it, I also think that, we're taking our time to be well-knowledged about the things that are working and that are not in the district, and getting that input. Like Christina said, it's a special thing when you're working in unity, because the students are the ones that benefit the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bueno?
Okay. Very short answer, it's solid. And I say that not to be flippant about it in any way. I spent 14 years of my professional career as an elected union officer, and I spent 14 years of my professional career in management as a chief officer. All of that was done in contract negotiations and labor management talks the entire time. I have a very, very deep understanding of labor management relations, and I've worked with it firsthand my entire professional life. When I came here, I worked with our teachers. There's 700 strong, and they don't just represent teachers. It's teachers, nurses, school psychologists, counselors. There's a lot of people in that group. We're very fortunate to have all organized employees. They all have the collective right to bargain. It's not just LEA. There's also CSEA. There's SEIU. And we have our confidentials. The relationship is very solid. The basis of that is trust and transparency. That is the absolute hallmark of all labor relations whenever you're doing collective bargaining. If people don't trust the information, it doesn't work. And you're constantly chasing your tail trying to fix it. We were very fortunate. Mr. Van Schack, who's now our superintendent, was key to that, and all the different labor leaders that were elected preserved that and worked on that. It's a diligent effort. It takes day-to-day work, and it's ever present, that effort. So I know that it's solid, and that's why we're able to be so nimble in this community, and we're able to work in partnership, and we don't have those labor disputes.
Thank you. We're going to move to Part B of this question and start with candidate White. What should the district do to recruit and retain high-quality teachers?
It seems to me we're doing a lot. We have signs on our schools that say we're hiring. We have very positive relationships with our bargaining units and with our teachers. One time I asked a teacher why she chose to come to Livermore. She says, the woman in the HR department who knew the answer called me and told me. So, you know, it was very important to the HR department that was processing her paperwork that she be informed. And, you know, there are times when we just turn out to be a whole community. And that was one of those times. I think the more publicity and the more our teachers talk to their colleagues in other districts, they remember that it's really nice to live and work in Livermore.
Thank you. Candidate Prusso.
I first would like to say that I know currently teacher retention and recruitment is a problem across the whole country, and it is definitely something that we need to be focused on as a district. Also, I know that salary is historically a problem for teachers. My parents were both teachers, and they both had several jobs to make it work for our family. I know that as we've already mentioned, you know, our budget doesn't have a lot of wiggle room, and it leaves little sort of opportunity for us to improve those salaries without getting the funding that we need from federal funding or state funding. However, I do think that there are some things that we could do to help to retain our teachers besides the culture that I think we already have of support. Also, the relationships that we have with our union, those are critical, but also I think there are some other things that we could work on, and we have talked about with Mr. Van Scheck, which is subsidized housing opportunities, possibly subsidized daycare opportunities for our teachers. And then another idea that one of our other trustees had was to possibly help pay for schooling, credentialing for some of our community members who may be retired but want to have a second career as a teacher. That's something that maybe we could help them with.
Thank you. Candidate Siddon.
So I agree with Trustee Prusso that teacher hiring and teacher retention is a big problem in this country, especially here in Livermore. And there's a lot that I think we are doing and that we can do to continue to not only encourage people to apply for jobs within the school district, but retain them for multiple years. That includes reaching out to colleges, college students to offer college students graduating with bachelor's or master's in education or whatever to get a job in our district, to become a teacher in our district. That means working with the city to build Eden housing and give our teachers, a place to live. And I also agree that teachers are underpaid historically and currently. And sometimes we just have to bring in more funding, I think, to pay for these things. So, I would want to find ways to bring in more funding to raise teacher wages, make sure that they're able to live and work here in Livermore, make sure that they're able to send their children to childcare, in a way that isn't financially detrimental to them. This is something I have seen. This is something I would want to address. And, I think there are many solutions and many avenues that we can take to address this really pressing issue.
Thank you. And Candidate Druin.
Well, this is a great question. I think my wife and I bought a house here in 2009. Within 2 years, we couldn't afford to buy a house across the street from us. We're both teachers. I mean, I'm a professor, but I'm really a teacher. And so thinking about recruiting, housing is absolutely essential. And I think that this is a problem. I think that Livermore has a problem. We don't have a big problem, and we want to stop from having a big problem. And we want to not be embarrassing like Milpitas and, going to extreme measures. We want to have a plan. We want to be able to tell people that, you can live here. We have a space for you. But we also want to, and relatedly to housing, I think we need to pressure elected officials above us, like Congressman Swalwell has an idea for how to try to address this problem, because this isn't just our problem, it's a statewide and nationwide problem. But we also need to provide targeted help to new teachers. We need to provide them professional learning that meets them where they are and helps them move into the profession and feel like they belong. But also in retaining teachers, look, teachers can make $10,000 more working 15 minutes away. And I think compensation is part of that. But also more importantly, well, I don't know more importantly, but also importantly is the professionalism, that when they have high quality buildings, when they're treated like a professional. I remember my dad, when he was teaching auto shop, he came in one day and he had a new desk, and it was like, it took 5 years off of his life because he felt validated and he felt like he belonged. And I think those are things that we can do that's, in addition to compensation, to help teachers want to stay here in Livermore. Thanks.
Thank you. We are going to go in numbers 7 through 4 for this next question. And we're going to start with candidate Prusso. What is the best way to address differences of opinion on the board or between the board and the administration?
Well, I think as everyone here probably already knows, when you're on a board, you work together as a team. And one of the things that I have so enjoyed working on the board is the different opinions that we all have and the way that we come together. And I think the important thing about being on this school board is that even though we may come from different backgrounds, we may come from different ideologies, and we may have different opinions, we are all here for the same reason, and that is to help our students and our educational community. And so that makes it, in my opinion, it makes it easy to come together and work together because we have a common goal. And sometimes we have to come at it in different ways, but I think we have this common goal, and it makes it easy for us to come together. Same thing with our experts sitting there in the back. I am not an educational expert. I'm a parent and I run a small business, but there are people who are. And so I think a lot of it is about trust. And trusting the people that we have working, not only our teachers and administrators throughout the district, but especially our administrators who work in the district office, who are making the big decisions that steer the district in many different directions. And so maintaining and keeping that trust is really important to working together.
Thank you. Candidate White.
I think one of the main things that brings us together is that we all have the same information. And that's one of the superintendent's main jobs, is to be sure that everybody has the same information. And the only difference is what we bring to the table and how we evaluate that information. And it's just, it turns out in Livermore that we very seldom don't have the same result and the same take on that information. And if we do, we just move on. Robert's rule says that if you find yourself in the minority and you've lost a vote, that basically they say, suck it up and move on. And that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, we move on.
Candidate Bueno.
I'm going to go back to that last question, just because I don't want to let it sit hanging out there. And just in case we have any prospective teachers, we don't have a problem recruiting and retaining.
No.
It is a national problem, and it's a diligent effort. But one of the things that's different here is the culture. People want to work in Livermore. We were a top workplace 5 of 7 years. So we have a lot of issues with trying to get sufficient funding. You have to remain diligent, but this is a desirable place to work, and that is why we're able to recruit and retain some of the best people. People leave other districts to come here despite any differences in pay. It's working conditions, and that is because we have great leadership in this district. And Kelly Bowers, who was our superintendent before, going into the next question, the way you communicate is through the superintendent. That's why that person's so important. And we were very lucky and fortunate that our deputy superintendent stepped up, and he's now our superintendent, Chris Van Schack. The differences are communicated through the leader that we oversee from our board's perspective. Contrary to popular belief, because of the Brown Act, and it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, is that we don't have side conversations amongst the board and go have coffee and talk about the topics. That's in violation of the Brown Act. You have your discussions, you do your business in public, and that's why this is a public meeting so that people can see the business of the board. But that back-end thing is done through our leadership team. And so the differences are expressed to them, they work through them, and then we say whatever we're going to say in public. So it's, there's no real back channels, and that's in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Candidate Kaplanis.
Okay, so from my background of being a scholar athlete in college, I know what it takes to be a team player. You respect everybody. You take their strengths and you build together upon that as far as working as a team. And I think upon the school board, everybody does have different backgrounds. Some people are in education, some people are in health, some people are in business, whatever it is. As long as we come together and make sure that we have laser focus on student achievement, and that's our main goal. I think we could do a lot of things. I think that is what, that's what's ultimately going to work if we agree that everything is for the best of the child. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we are going to move to Part B and start with candidate Ms. Syka. Sorry. Chris Van Schack is a few months into his tenure as the district superintendent. What is your assessment of Van Schack during these early weeks and from what you learned during the board's hiring process last year? If elected or re-elected, how will you work with Van Schack and the administration to achieve the district's goals?
I, first of all, love, and it says a lot, that the district promotes from within. I love that it raises up its people from within. It pours into them. Not all districts do that. That's a strength. Every time there's a massive change, you lose time. You've got to get the group caught up to speed. So I think that is a real winning attribute. To kind of piggyback on what the other candidates have said so far, is it's about relationships. So when you give respect, you get respect. When you try to adopt a stance of curiosity to learn so that you can make the most informed decisions, you can share your opinions and hopefully add meaning to the table as opposed to trying to get your way. I think when that focus is there and that we are all there for that same goal and sharing meaning into that pool to be able to move forward best, that will work well. So I do think that he's made a very smooth transition and we haven't lost time, and that's been a real strength.
Thank you. Candidate Druin?
Sure. So I think Superintendent Van Schack brings a lot of assets to Livermore, which is fantastic. I think he's student-centered. He's had experience in the classroom. He's focused on assessment, which I think is something, different from the prior superintendent to think of. Well, not totally different, but that's a top priority, is making sure that, the decisions that we're making are based on data and trying to do the best for every single student in Livermore. I think he has a collegial relationship with the teachers union, which is fantastic, because if it's confrontational, there was a superintendent in Lodi Unified a long time ago that got the job because the word on the street was that he was able to squeeze out 5% from the teachers, and that's how he got it. And that's not how you want to operate. You want to operate treating people with professionalism and respect. And the other thing that I appreciate is he's focused on the actual needs of our students, that it's politics, but it's local politics. It's what are the actual needs of our students as opposed to, what we're hearing about, what's happening in Michigan or Florida. But the other thing that I'd say is that I'm looking forward to hopefully pushing back against him and questioning the decisions that he's making and not just aligning and conforming to what he's doing. That I think that he has his expertise, but we also have a diversity of perspectives. And so I'm hoping to be in a position to question him and have him reinforce the things that he's doing and justify the decisions that he's making for the best of all students.
Thank you. And candidate Sedan.
Right. So when the school district hires a superintendent, we want to make sure that they're knowledgeable about about our schools, what's going on in our schools, that they're experienced in education, and that they have a sense of expertise to be able to do the job well. I had the chance to meet with Superintendent Van Schack a few days ago, and he presented himself as very knowledgeable about the issues facing our school district and about the things that the school district is pursuing in our schools. He seemed to me that he was very dedicated to our students and to our schools and to make sure that our students' needs are addressed, and that, you know, we are doing everything that we can to support our students. He's very experienced. He's dedicated his life to education, you know, to preparing our next generation to go out and save the world. And I think that's really important. But, you know, as Candidate Droom was saying, I agree that, you know, there has to be some oversight, right? Superintendent Van Schack, he's the expert. He has all the info. He's there to carry out whatever decisions we make, but there has to be some oversight too. And, you know, I think that that's important, but it's good when we have a superintendent that we have a good relationship with and that we're able to work with, and a superintendent that also, you know, believes in education and is committed to serving our students.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to our next question. We're starting to wind down. I just want to take 1 second to check in and see, did we have any audience questions submitted? Any cards? No? Okay. All right, so moving on to our next question, we are going to do our odds and even flip again. So the first part is going to be for candidates 1 through 7. So we'll start with candidate Siddon. What are the most critical issues or challenges our school district is facing? How would you address them if elected?
So I'm running on 3 main points. Number 1, we have to expand mental health support. That includes working with local providers in the community college district to bring in more mental health services for our students, ensuring that our counselors and student resource officers are fully prepared to deal with any mental health crises that our students and staff might be facing. You know, I believe we need to take a look at our curriculum, see if there's any room for improvement, modernize our educational resources, whether that's bringing in new textbooks or transitioning to digital textbooks, you know, supporting Measure G and other future bond measures to rebuild our schools, you know, promoting the IB program and classes that will, you know, give students a sense of inclusivity and also address their career goals. You know, working with other local government entities to build pathways to success for our students, to keep our students safe in schools, you know, to build affordable housing for our teachers and families, and amplifying community voices, you know, getting out in the community, keeping our inbox open, listening to what the community has to say. You know, transparency and trust with the community is key. And I think that, you know, I think the school district has done a good job of being pretty transparent and building a sense of trust with the community, but it's also important that we elect people who recognize that need as well. And those are some of the things that I would, those are some of the issues that, you know, I saw in our schools as a student, and those are the issues that I am excited to address on the school board.
Thank you. Candidate Mazaika.
Again, comes down to social and emotional learning for me. I think we take care of each facet of the stakeholders, starting at the district office, making sure that there's a strong sense of community and foundation there, going to the school sites with the principals, the teachers, the classrooms, and that looks a variety of ways. Yes, I agree that it comes to having counselors in place, but it's also equipping teachers. Do we know how to teach students how to deal with big emotions? We have big feelings, starting in kindergarten, I mean, all our lives. And do we know how to express those? If we cannot deal with those and express those, we cannot do the fun work of learning. Learning is lots of fun, but a barrier to that is when we don't have our basic needs met. So that's a critical piece for me. That it has to start there. Once we start there, we feel secure, we're able to take academic risks. That's where that academic rigor comes. That's where we can close the achievement gap. I've seen it. I know firsthand it can be done. And then, of course, it's that equity part. Do all students have equal access to the curriculum? It's going to look different for different students. There's not one size fits all. That's what takes time. But I believe that there's a strong community here and that these small pivots can happen and we can make great changes.
Thank you. Candidate Bueno.
When you say critical, the thing that comes to mind, having sat in this room as board president for the last 7 years, one of the things is nullifying the polarizing national politics that have kind of polluted the public dialogue. And I think that coming out of it, Livermore came out ahead in many ways. Our kids were back. We never did shutter our schools. We dismissed our schools, and we immediately pivoted. And it put a big burden on our teachers and all the people that support them. Being able to have those teachers in solid positions, we talked about housing and other things. A lot of it comes down to funding. We have a huge special education funding gap. Represents between $4, maybe $5 million that floats around. That's a federal mandate. And the federal government, to me, that has been a focus. I've talked with Congressman Swalwell. I think I have a little traction on it, but it's a big problem. If we could fully fund special education, that's a big, maybe 3% of our budget. Pursuing some of the exterior grants, we've been pretty successful at that on social emotional, the Latinx project over at Maryland and Junction. And then to close the inequities in the ADA, the average daily attendance funding for our schools. No one can do their job without the funding. And if we can fix some of these disparities, then we get back to equity. And that's our number one thing, is a free and equitable education for every child in this community. And to achieve that, we need to take care of some of these. We just have to be diligent on it.
Candidate Prusso.
Yeah, as I stated at the beginning, I think still focus for me is making sure that our students have these strong fundamental skills that they need to move on to college or career, including math, including reading and science. It's not lost on me, though, that mental health, social emotional health is an important part of that. And it's something that we already are working on as a district, and I will continue to support and continue to help work on that. Another big help that we have with that, with those gaps, is our relationships that we have within our community, including with our Pedrosi Foundation, especially particularly our Pedrosi Young Scholars. Such a great program. Our Quest Science Center, the Livermore Lab, Livermore Shakespeare. We have so many amazing programs and in our community that I think we need to continue those relationships. Those help us to fill the gaps. And we have so many volunteers in our community, people who are out there in the audience and others who are willing to help us with that. And I think that maintaining those relationships and keeping those up can really help give us that extra boost that our teachers need, that we need.
Well, you sort of stole my thunder. That's okay. Because I wanted to drill down a little bit more on the partnerships. So we're going to start with candidate Druin. And how do you think the partnerships in the district are right now, and what could you do, if elected, to strengthen those ties?
I think that Livermore's awesome when it comes to partnerships. I think about the experiences that my kids had in school. They had a local beekeeper come in, in their unit on pollinators. They had Livermore Shakes come in and they acted out, a play from Shakespeare. Not all of it, but most of it. And I think that those are the things that help students see that learning is more than just math, English, science, that there's things that we can do with this knowledge that we have. I think that some partnerships that we can or should form are building bridges with universities in the area. I think that we're kind of housed in between CSU East Bay and Turlock, and I think that there's tremendous asset and value to partnering with universities like mine. I'm the assistant director of the Community Equity Research Center, which partners universities with community members to try to solve problems. So I think that there's tremendous asset and knowledge here, but I think that there's other organizations that we can work with to try to meet the needs of our students. Thanks.
Thank you. And candidate Kaplanis.
Okay, as far as partnership goes, Livermore is a really unique community because of all the access that we have to different things. We have wineries, we have our ranches, we have a lot of small businesses. We also have a community college here in our own city. So the partnerships that propel our students to be ready for college and beyond are really important. I think we already have some things in place as far far as the science and engineering programs. We have, career and technical for children that aren't going to go beyond to college, but they at least have a trade. So working closely with any type of computer science and agriculture, I think would be of value, and we need to continue those partnerships that we already have. I also think that we need to, coming from my background, working in a collegiate level, making sure that we have our student athletes prepared to get the scholarships that are available out there if they are, if they know how to go about seeking those scholarships for their talents, whether it's athletics or any of their extracurricular activities. We want to make sure that we have partnerships with different colleges for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Candidate White.
Oh, we just need to foster the ones we have. We have a diverse partnerships that you just can't imagine. We have partnerships with the lab, and the scientists in town provide our TOPS instruction, and they've invented Quest almost overnight. So we do the arts with our Spark and the science with Quest, and our students experience so much besides the book learning of the history, teacher instruction in the class. We have young people that do science intern projects in the summer with the lab. There's summer science, there's summer arts. It's just, there's no lack of things for students to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to provide your closing statements. And going in reverse numerical order, we will start with Candidate Prusso.
Thank you. I don't have much more to add, but I would like to say that I am a lifelong learner. And whether I'm reading Emerson or learning how to make pizza or learning what the rules of water polo are, it is something that I am passionate about and I love. And I feel like in the past 4 years, I have learned a lot. And in the past 2 years, I learned even more. COVID kind of put us on the fast track of learning. But I would like to take that learning that I've had over the past 4 years and continue to move that into another 4 years and continue to learn and to grow and to help this community, this educational community, to do better for our students. One other thing I would like to just say is that as a parent, I would like to address the parents that I think it's really important that we're a part of our students' lives at school. And it's important that we get our parents back on campus, which we're doing, and to be involved. And I'm really appreciative of our community engagement. They have the Livermore Learns, which is sort of a parent university that you can experience. And one thing we did learn from COVID is that by putting that online, we got a lot more people who were able to experience that and learn from that as well, from all different topics, including social, emotional topics, A through G, graduation, filling out applications, whatever it is. We have many forums and opportunities for parents and people in the community to learn. So I would invite you to check that out. And I'm just, again, grateful for this opportunity that I've had for the past 4 years, and would hope to continue forward and do what we're doing and do better and figure out ways to continue to help our community in all of its educational goals.
Thank you. Candidate White.
I want to thank you all for putting on this event, and I want to thank the staff, our district staff, Mr. Warner, who's here, who's supporting everybody. We have all learned a lot from the last 2.5 years of COVID. Whether our students were learning in their classrooms or in front of their television screens or their computer screens, or whatever they were doing, even if they were playing hooky from school, they were learning something. I mean, when you're an 8-year-old, that's what you do. You learn. And Traditionally, we try to have 8-year-olds in the classroom learning what we want them to learn, but they learned something whether they were with us or not. And I think what we need to do more and more is take our students from where they are to where they need to be. We need to use whatever means. We need to be creative, be innovative, and prepare our students to be, as we say, happy, healthy, thriving adults. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take, the more money we have, the sooner we can get it done. And I hope that you'll invite me to join in this process one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that I just don't want to leave on the table is this is not an underperforming district with overwhelming tasks. We have challenges that some districts don't have. But if you do direct comparisons, we are at or above in achievement. The workplace here is desirable. People seek coming here. And two partnerships that didn't get mentioned that are key and unique to this community is the Pedrosi Foundation, which is a remarkable one, and the Livermore Valley Education Foundation, which was founded by Bill, he was a founding member, was Bill Dunlop, previous board member. In addition, we have the two national laboratories that we sometimes speak about vaguely, which is Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory and Sandia, and then the partnership with the Quest Science Center. We are the biggest city in this valley. We have an airport, premier golf courses, wineries. This is the community. There is no comparison. We should be the gold standard, and that should be the pursuit, and that is the track that we are on. Aside from the other things that we discussed today, I'm not going to, I'll say that there's no amount of effort that's going to improve our educational experience and the outcomes of our students that can't be achieved without our teachers. And it has been and will continue to be my escalating focus to recruit and retain the best professionals available to serve our kids. And to achieve this, there's a bunch of things you have to do simultaneous. It's not one thing or the other. I mentioned the money to get from the feds on the special ed and pursuing some exterior grants. We've been very successful at that. Some of our social emotional stuff, and it's really, really helped. And then we need to, and we've made progress, but then people bounced up their efforts, and we need to work. That's a core funding issue on the ADA. Academics is the central core of the educational experience, and if the COVID thing has any type of silver lining, it's the technology pivot that we did in that. Our teachers, our professionals, our staff was key to that effort, and we need to support them with everything we can, because that is the beneficiaries of that effort, our kids. And that should be the only reason anyone's here, is for children, and I believe it is. And so we're well positioned for that. Sometimes we overlook it, but I know it's always a concern, and that's safety. Safety is a paramount concern, and it has been our top priority in this district throughout. We're not going to discuss the particulars of it, but I can tell you that technology is a key factor. There's been vast upgrades in the security on our campuses. We have key partnerships with Livermore Police Department and the federal government, and we've expanded on that capacity. I want to continue to utilize my experience and knowledge in government to modernize our facilities, expand the public and private partnerships, and I'll continue to save the district money. But most importantly, I want to maximize opportunity for our Livermore kids. My goal is real simple, and that our students, our Livermore kids, get the best education they can from our Livermore schools, and I've got the energy to do it. You can visit my website at buenoforschools.com, and I ask for your vote on November the 8th.
Thank you. Candidate Kaplanis.
Being elected to the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District School Board would enhance our students' experience in their public education because I bring an open-minded parental lens to the decisions being made. I also offer a health and wellness lens coming from my professional background, a business lens since I have experience in handling large budgets, and I also provide an ethnic lens being that I am Native American and Hispanic. I am passionate about education, and I'm equally as passionate about serving. I'm a strong believer and a product of public education. I came from modest and humble beginnings. I can help enhance and propel our district past our current state, and I'm all in. Thank you for your time and support for Dr. Dina Kaplanis for Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District School Board. Thank you again to the community members, Livermore Indivisible and Livermore Vine for having me tonight.
Wow, you guys have a hard decision. I don't envy you. I do too, in terms of where I'm going to place my 3 votes. This has been a really wonderful evening, and you can see that we all have a heart for children. And as candidate Bueno said, we should, right? So that's a good thing. No matter who comes out in the November 8th election, I think you should feel really good. I know I do. I threw my hat in the ring, never wanting to be in politics ever, and I just had God speak to me, and I said, okay, God, I'm going to do it. If you, the voters, decide that I'm the right person at the right time, great, and if not, I hope there are other places that I will serve, because that's really what had me get into this crazy thing. And I'm learning as I go, and just hoping for the best. But thank you so much for your time and taking, having an open mind and listening to what I have to say, as well as all the candidates.
Candidate Druin.
Thanks. So going back to the partners, I would be remiss if I wasn't talking about the amazing members of PTA and the ways that they fundraise and help support the teachers in the classroom. It's phenomenal. And then also thinking about connections to local businesses. And I think that that's something that the board is thinking, or is in the process of doing. And I think that, when we can make high schools funnel into good paying middle class jobs here in Livermore, I think that's a win-win for businesses, for students, and for everybody. So schools are tremendously complex systems. And I think that we need to focus on making sure that every student has access and opportunity, that they can get into college or career or engage civically once they're finished. I've studied educational systems from the inside and out for 17 years. And I possess the drive to make a difference to support students. And I think all of us here have drive. But I think that I also possess knowledge and skill that sets me apart. I want to be a bridge between the school district and research that exists in our nation. And I think that research can and should inform the actions of this district. I want to bring new ideas to the table for consideration, but I also want to hold the school district accountable to walk the walk, to align their beliefs and their actions in their practices and policies. I also recognize that there's not low-hanging fruit and light switches. It's not like we're just missing something. It takes a lot of hard work to understand systems, to understand the needs of students and the cultures of every single school. And I'm willing to put in the hard work and the nuanced work to make that happen. So I think that I'm qualified for the position, and I'm ready to serve the students in our community. So please consider voting for me, Stephen Druin. I've got a website too, stephendruin.com. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, well, I'd like to once again thank the Livermore Vine and Livermore Indivisible for putting on this forum and inviting all the candidates to come and share their plans for our schools with the community. My name is Hayden Sidden. I'm 18 years old, an 11-year resident of Livermore, and a proud product of LVJUSD. I am the pro-progress, pro-labor, pro-safety, pro-LGBTQ, pro-housing, and pro-student candidate in this race. And I'm also proud to be the youngest candidate in this race and the only recent graduate of LVJUSD running for school board. We need more young voices in positions of leadership. And as a former student running to serve our schools, I know best what goes on in our schools, and I can use that experience in my decision-making process. I will use that knowledge to work hard to deliver on the things that I'm running on. And if those things end up not being possible, then I'm committed to finding other solutions to address those issues. And I am ready to bring my 10 years of firsthand knowledge of what goes on in our classrooms to the school board and deliver results for Livermore schools. And that's not an empty promise. In this very room, on this very dais, decisions are made that directly impact our future generation. So who better to make those decisions than someone who has been directly impacted by those decisions? If you have any more questions for me, I'm here for you. Come say hello after this forum. Contact me with the phone number and email I have on my website, sitinforlvjusd.com. I'll be at the Thursday farmers markets. Come say hello then. Invite me to grab some coffee, because I would love nothing more than to have a conversation with you and to talk to you about the issues you care about. And with that being said, I'll leave you with this. I'm only 18 years old, but I ask you not to judge me by my age alone. I ask you to judge me by who I am, what I've done, and what I stand for. I might not have yard signs all over Livermore, but I do have good, fresh ideas and a shared passion to make our schools better for all of our children. My name is Hayden Sidden, and if you share my values and like what I had to say tonight, then I humbly ask for you to vote for me on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. On behalf of livermorevine.com, I would like to thank all of the candidates for participating in this evening's forum. We'd also like to thank Livermore Indivisible and the school district for coordinating the venue, live stream, recording, and other logistics. A recording of this forum will be available soon on livermorevine.com's YouTube channel. I would also like to ask the candidates if you guys could remain seated just for a couple more minutes because I'd like to snap a photo of you all. And other than that, have a great night. Did you have anything to add, Jeanette?
Just thank you very much, and thank you to our audience here and on the live stream. We appreciate it. Thank you.